So about a week ago, I uploaded this video called A Tetris Expert Plays Tetris Effect for the first time, in which this dude, Trey Harrison, who's amazing at classic Tetris, plays this new upcoming 2018 Tetris game. And the response to that video has been mind-blowing for a ton of reasons, and as part of that response, there have been a ton of comments on that video, and a lot of them are questions, and a bunch of these questions are really easy to answer. For example, was this video an advertisement, like a paid ad by PlayStation or by Enhanced Games? No, it was not, I promise. What was the music? The music in the video was actually all music from the game, which is part of why I'm so excited for this game. The soundtrack seems like it's going to be incredible, but there is one question that I've gotten over and over and over and over and over, and it's completely my fault for failing to answer in the first video, and that question is, what did Trey think of Tetris Effect? Like, in the video, you see him come into the experience, you see him play it a little bit, and I think anyone paying close attention could kind of probably suss out whether or not he liked it. But it's a good question, and it's one that I should have answered in the original video. So, the truth is I actually did shoot an exit interview with Trey after we played the game. You can find the full interview that I did with Trey up on patreon.com/Babylonian, so backers of my Patreon can watch the entire thing, but I felt like it'd be worth revealing at least some of that conversation to the general YouTube audience, because I think it's interesting, and I think it's a question that merits answering. So, the reason I didn't include this video initially is because the audio is a little crappy, so bear with me, just try to deal with it a little bit, but I've also done a lot of work to clean up the audio in post, so hopefully that helps. So let's start at the very beginning here, when Trey and I first met in person. I actually had no idea how much he knew about Tetris Effect. I wasn't sure if he had seen the trailer or heard about the announcement. I wasn't sure if classic Tetris players were in the loop on upcoming Tetris games, so I kind of just asked him point blank before he ever played the game. Have you seen the trailer for Tetris Effect?
I have, yeah. Lots of particles. Mm-hmm. I'm interested to see how it feels. The NES Tetris that I play has very, well, after 30 years, I've gotten very attuned to the feel of that game. And this one I'm expecting to feel more like a modern Tetris game, but, you know, we'll see. I'm just curious to play and see what it feels like.
Now, when Trey says that he's gotten used to the feel of classic NES-era Tetris, that's almost kind of an understatement, and it actually speaks to another misunderstanding I've seen about the original video that pops up every once in a while in the comments. Modern Tetris and classic Tetris are extremely different video games, and for some people, when they think about expert-level Tetris, they imagine something like this. And as undeniably impressive as that footage is, this is footage of modern Tetris. This is a relatively recent Tetris game in the grand scheme of things. This is not the original NES 1989 game that Trey grew up on. And the reason that's noteworthy is because modern Tetris is, in a lot of ways, a drastically more generous game to the player than classic Tetris is. There are the really obvious differences, like the fact that you can't use a hold function to save a piece for later, or the fact that there are no guide rails to speak of, or no ghost effect to help you slot a piece into place. But there are a lot of really important invisible differences too. One really major difference is that in contemporary Tetris games, you can kind of slide pieces around pretty freely before they lock into place on the playfield, which allows you to pull off those sophisticated maneuvers like climbing and T-spins and stuff like that. By contrast, in classic Tetris, which is what Trey plays, pieces lock into place almost the exact instant they touch another tetrimino, which makes it way, way, way easier to screw yourself over with a bad play. You see what I mean? It's really brutal. It really only takes one tiny screw up halfway up the height of the board for everything to come crumbling down. And at the risk of oversimplifying, and I am not a Tetris expert by any means, the truth is that all other things being equal, simply staying alive in classic Tetris is about 1 billion times harder than it is in modern Tetris. And for that reason, the way the two games are played at a high level is just fundamentally different. Modern Tetris really emphasizes speed, whereas classic Tetris really emphasizes thoughtful, careful strategizing and stacking. Which is why, to experienced players of games like Tetris the Grandmaster 3 or Puyo Puyo Tetris or even the Facebook game Tetris Battle, watching Trey play might initially scan as somewhat slow.
It's just that one version of Tetris. I'm no good on Grandmaster, I'm no good on any of the modern Tetris games. Yeah. Like, I can sit down and I can play this new version that I've never played before and get the dodeca whatever thing, you know? Yeah. But, I mean, if I sat down and played that against other people like Blank, or even Kevin or Alex, those guys would have been much better at this game.
And there's a very good reason for that. Trey isn't trained in high-speed, slippery Tetris. He's trained in building precise, perfect stacks, which is actually what made him perfect for the task of getting the world's first decahexatrist. Generally speaking, the people who play classic Tetris competitively tend to use a technique that we see Trey use here, which involves just leaving the last row open for sophisticated points reasons. That is the most efficient way to play classic Tetris, and that's what Trey does, and it just so happens that that is exactly the type of person I needed to try to clear 16 plus lines in a matter of seconds. So it worked out. I'm very happy that I landed on Trey. But yeah, I needed to step to Trey's defense a little bit there. So back to Trey's firsthand experience. I'm gonna be honest, at first I was getting the impression that Trey did not like Tetris Effect. His first round with the game, this was one of the first things I heard him say.
It's interesting, there's so much going on the screen that it's at times hard to see what the next piece is.
And Trey's 100% right. There are a lot of visual effects going on in Tetris Effect, and some of them even cross over onto the playfield itself. And even though I personally love all that stuff, some of those effects are admittedly pretty intense, and you can imagine how the intensity of those effects would be compounded for a guy who's played 30 years of NES Tetris, which is a game that kind of presents all of its visual information as cleanly and as straightforwardly as possible. Now, after those comments, I was pretty nervous that Trey had written off the game entirely, but I kept watching as he played a few more levels and then messed with the VR version and finally achieved the decahexatrist, and I caught his reaction the exact moment he took off the headset, so here is what he said when that happened.
Were you capturing that?
Yeah, we got it all.
To get the capture. Oh, that's cool.
What'd you think, Trey?
It was really cool. I liked playing it more with the...
yeah, you probably couldn't hear it because you had the headphones on, but we were talking about, like, I noticed that it seemed like you were doing better, and then I realized it's because that display has such low latency.
Oh, that's
so very, very little lag.
That had a lot to do with it, I think.
Yeah, 120 frames per second. Like you're so close to the Tetris.
It was cool. I felt like I was playing faster.
Yeah, I thought you were
responding better. And, I think also, I played it for the last 20 minutes. So
yeah,
getting into the zone.
Got warmed up. Sick.
Yeah,
rad.
That's cool.
So yeah, his reaction seemed at least initially positive, but I gave him a little bit of time to digest what he'd played. We went and found a quiet part of E3 where we could have a conversation, and yeah, here it is. It's a little echoey, but here is, at last, what Trey thought of Tetris Effect. So, how was the Tetris Effect for you?
I had, to be honest, low expectations, because I think I'm so dialed into the Nintendo version that anything that's any different, I'm just like, ugh. So I think I'm kind of a tough critic, but I actually enjoyed playing it quite a lot. I feel like I could play it for half hour, hour. I definitely preferred the VR version of it. I'm not really sure why, because I've not really enjoyed VR in the past, but something about the sound design and just the feeling that they are trying to create in the game that works. In a way, it's such a departure from like what I think myself and the other sort of competitive Tetris players would want to play against each other. Like, it's so not that. Like, I think I commented at one point during the video that like I couldn't even see the next piece because there are so many particles flying around. Like, that's not something that you want if you're playing like serious Tetris or something, but Tetris doesn't have to be a serious game. I found myself wanting to get to the next level just to see what it looked like, because the aesthetic choices that they made are interesting, I guess.
And what I love most about Trey's comments here, like what I love most about his reaction to Tetris Effect, is his total willingness to admit that Tetris doesn't have to be an ultra-serious game. I think when you imagine people who play games at a high level or who play it very competitively, it's really easy to write them off as quote-unquote taking it too seriously, or people who don't know how to have fun with the game anymore. And I love Trey's reaction here because he's so clearly not that guy, right? Like, he loved Tetris Effect, not because it's the most competitive version of Tetris ever made, it is clearly not that game, but because it's something else, because it's like, it taps into a part of Tetris he likes beyond just the competitive, high-level, being super, super good at it thing. And that to me speaks volumes about Trey as a human being, not to get like too fake deep. I know that's all I do on this channel anymore, but like, it really cemented my admiration for Trey as a dude who is so good at this one specific game that he's been hammering away at for 3 decades. Like, you could really easily imagine a dude who played Tetris Effect and wrote it off right away and just got a bad taste in their mouth from the things that it changes. And Trey clearly is not that guy. He recognized that it was different. He recognized why it was different. I don't think he's gonna swap out his NES for a PS4 anytime soon, but he liked it, and I got the sense that he'd be open to playing it again. So yeah, I just wanted to set aside some time and finally answer the question of what Trey thought of the game. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new to this channel, I've got a couple other videos in this same style that is going to kind of be what I focus on going forward. So here's a documentary I did recently that is much sillier and a lot funnier than the Tetris Effect video. I hope you like it. Also, if you want to support my content and see more behind the scenes stuff from me and Trey hanging out, including the full interview with him after playing Tetris Effect, you can click right here to check out my Patreon and support me directly. Thank you so much.